Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football to the Texas A&M fans who've been rocking with the fellas the last couple of weeks. Many of y'all know that there's not a program that I'm having more fun talking about than what's getting built in College Station. And it's a combination of a laundry list of different things. I think most notably, I've had a blast talking about how Mike Elko's gone about his business building this roster. To a lot of y'all listening, we talk about this team 12 months out of the year, what they've done in the portal, what they've done on the high school recruiting trail. Now, the second part of it is the player development and the program that you're seeing built as well. And it ain't no secret. I ain't breaking any news to anybody that this football team this year has a chance to win a national championship. They are good enough to do it. I think they check the boxes necessary to go out and do it. I want to have a couple of different conversations, a bye-week check-in, if you will, and talk about number one, what makes this team different when you look at the numbers and you look at the tape from what we've seen this team in 2025, you compare it to 2024. What are the steps that this football team has made? I think that the second important conversation that I think is worth having is, all right, how does this team continue to get better as 2025 plays out? Because we talk about this all the time. The most important conversation that you can have if you're Mike Elko is, all right, so really damn happy with what we've done in the first three quarters of the season. Well, it's about finding your best form in the month of November, in the month of December, the month of January. I always go back and say, look at Ohio State last year. Ohio State was not their final form in the first 2 months of the season, but they reached their final form in the playoffs, and that's what allowed them to run through the playoffs the way they did 12 months ago. If you're Texas A&M, you're still looking to find those opportunities where you can continue to get better, and I think there's plenty. There's plenty good. There's plenty that can be cleaned up as well for Texas A&M. We're going to get into a lot of different things. I do want to start with some just general observations before we get nitty gritty, look at some numbers, and we'll look at kind of some of the players that have stepped up. Number one, this team's competitive character feels different. Like last year when the moment was the biggest, especially in November, it never felt like this team played their best football when it was all on the line. I look at this team in 2025. Hell, you go back to that Notre Dame game early on in the year, like down in the fourth quarter on the road against a quality team that just played for a national championship. This team figures out a way to win. I go back to even last week against LSU. You're on the road in a hostile environment. You were the better team in that first half, but you enter into your locker room. I think a lot of Texas A&M fans might forget Texas A&M was losing going into the halftime locker room, right? Back against the wall a little bit. You go out and play your best football we have seen from this football team in the second half of that game, and you run away with it. You get Brian Kelly fired. Here's the other thing. The premier difference makers this team has. There are two things that I like about this team a lot. Number one, we've talked about it a lot. It's so complete, right? In an era of college football where it's really hard for teams to keep together a roster in the transfer portal. You look at even the best teams across the country, every team seems to have a flaw or a problem. where's the glaring flaw that Texas A&M has? So you're a really complete team at pretty much all aspects of your roster, but you also have those premier difference makers. You talk about making plays that you need to make to go win football games. Well, that's normally players doing it, right? The teams that win national championships have those special players. Texas A&M has that this year in ways that they probably didn't in 2024. And you could start with Marcel Reed, who's playing like a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback. We're going to take a deep dive into what we've seen from Marcel. He's a guy that, hey, when you need his best and when it's time to go make a play, he's making those plays more times than not. And Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, like those are two guys that when you're in a rut on offense, don't think too hard. You just get the football into their hands. That they're the best players on the football field nearly every single time they've taken the field. They'll go make a play for you. Cassius Howell on defense, what I think might be the best pure pass rusher that we see in the country right now. You got guys that are the best players on the field, even when you're playing some of the best teams in the country. Not sure if you had that in 2024. Like, to me, those are some broad takeaways that make this team feel different. That not make this team feel different, make this team different in 2025. If that made sense, I kind of got a little scrambled up there. Now I want to get into a little bit more nitty gritty and talk about some intricate things that feel different about this football team. Before we do, and as always, I'd be out of my mind not to thank the Texas A&M fans. It has been a team we've talked a lot about since Mike Elko has taken over. It's been a team that I've personally had so much fun talking about, and the amount of support that this fan base has shown the boys been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. In it, it's got to start with Marcel Reed in the steps that you've seen this kid take. And you have to give a monster shout out to Coach Colin Klein, who I think has built an offense around Marcel Reed that is perfect. You are leaning into his skill sets. You are maybe hiding his flaws a little bit. When you start diving into Marcel Reed, and we'll get into some of the numbers, how many quarterbacks across the country, specifically in this conference, that are we taking over Marcel Reed? I mean, 2 months ago, all we talked about was Arch Manning at Texas, Lenore Sellers at South Carolina, DJ Lagway at Florida, Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. I'm taking Marcel Reed over every single one of those quarterbacks that we just listed. I mean, hell, you could make the argument that there's not a quarterback in this conference that's playing better than Marcel Reed. Now, where are the steps we've seen from this kid? And I was looking at some of the numbers, because one of the things the thing that feels the most different is Marcel Reed and his composure in the pocket. Right? Last year, it felt really skittish. It felt like Marcel Reed was very, very quick to drop his eyes and go be an athlete, which makes sense for a redshirt freshman that doesn't have a ton of playing experience at the college football level. Last year, Marcel Reed had 43 scrambles on the year. Marcel Reed sitting at 25 this year. Well, he is still utilizing a very good asset of his game, and that's his athleticism. That's his ability to make people miss. That's his ability to kill you with his legs. We're being much more selective when we're doing it. And we're sitting in the pocket and we're keeping our eyes downfield. It's allowed us to hit a lot more explosive plays through that passing attack. You're seeing Marcel Reed be much more comfortable and diligent about when he decides to use his legs. Number two, really good at extending plays. We know he's a good athlete. Him getting himself out of trouble, which is such an important aspect of a quarterback when you want to win at the highest level of the sport. What I mean by that is when you want to win an SEC championship, when you want to win a national championship, well, guess what? You're going to see a lot of good defensive fronts. The quarterbacks that can get themselves out of trouble more, make things work when it's not perfect for them in the pocket, those are the teams that you normally see winning at the highest level. Like, I fully believe, Quinn Ewers and his lack of ability to do that for Texas last year, that might have cost Texas a national championship. Right, I'm looking at Texas A&M, or I'm looking at Marcel Reed, and say 7.9% pressure to sack ratio. That's one of the lowest in the country. When Marcel Reed sees pressure, he's only getting sacked on 7.9% of those pressure situations. Really good feel for getting himself out of trouble. He's actually gotten better pushing the ball down the field. I think that's still an avenue where Marcel Reed can get better, but he's been better pushing the ball down the field than he was last year. The numbers bear that out. Now, we can spend time talking about Marcel Reed. I also think that what's around Marcel Reed is certainly helping him take that next step as well. This wide receiver room ain't even close to last year. Texas A&M, if you were to stack wide receiver rooms in the SEC, Texas A&M's closer to the bottom than they were to the top. How many wide receiver duos are we taking over Casey and Mario Craven? That is, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, and to go a little off-roading here, but that's one of the things I love most about what I've seen from Mike Elko so far running this program is that Mike Elko did not go to the transfer portal and completely bring in a new roster. In fact, he did the complete opposite and said, hey, I'm going to be take a deep dive into our football team and say, instead of going out and getting 50 new players, let's go get a few at positions we need to go out and address. Boy, did he hit. I don't think Texas A&M is undefeated without Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver on this roster. Those two have revolutionized what Texas A&M has done. Now, why have they done that? To me, it's yards after the catch. Texas A&M so far this year, they almost have the same number of yards after the catch as they had all of last year. And that's largely due to thanks to KC, Mario Craver, and Marcel Reed's ability to be accurate with the football and give his wide receivers opportunities to make it happen after the catch. And you have to give a massive shout out to Coach Colin Klein, too, doing a great job finding opportunities for both of these cats to make plays with the football in their hands. Lastly, pass protection. Way better than it was last year. One of the things with Texas A&M last year is they always could run the football. When Le'Veon Moss went down with the injury, the run game slowed. Texas A&M had to lean a little bit more into the passing attack. When they played really quality defensive fronts, the pass protection, it was not as bad as it was in 2023, but it broke down a little bit. Now I'm looking at this and say, hey, Marcel Reed's kept clean on 75% of his dropbacks in 2025. That's nearly 10 percentage points higher than what it was last year. And again, you talk about reasons to buy stock in Texas A&M, not only in 2025, but the future of this program. He shot out Adam Cushing. This ain't a brand new offensive line. It's not like Texas A&M went to the portal and grabbed a bunch of new guys. It's the same group. You just got better. Player development is huge, and you're seeing Texas A&M have that. This offensive line as a unit is playing significantly better than it did last year, both running the football and in pass protection. Marcel Reed's gotten better as a quarterback. The situation for Marcel Reed, significantly better than what it was last year. And that was one of the things we talked about during the offseason is, hey, it's reasonable to believe that Marcel Reed gets better. In fact, I'd bet my money that Marcel Reed gets better from his redshirt freshman year to his redshirt sophomore year. The situation was also way better, too. You're seeing that play out. He's asserted himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the sport, quite frankly, a guy that might make it to New York City as a Heisman candidate. I think this has been a sneaky one, that the running back position. I mean, last year when Le'Veon Moss went down, there was a significant drop-off in Texas A&M's ability to run the football. Ruben Owens back healthy. And look, that's another thing I'll say. You talk about reasons to think Texas A&M can take a step. I think Ruben Owens, I think the best football for this kid, I think it's still in front of him. Jamari Morrow is going to continue to get opportunities to impact this team on offense as well. With Le'Veon Moss working back from the injury, what are the steps that Ruben Owens and Morrow can take over the next couple of weeks? But regardless of that, you have more answers at running back than you had last year. That drop-off without Le'Veon Moss is not as obvious as it so clearly was in 2024. Now on defense, that's a storyline too. And again, once again, it's not like Texas A&M went to the portal and completely retooled this defense. In fact, most of this defense is the same defense that you saw in 2024. Two things. Not really two things. It's one thing, the simple stuff. Number one, we're tackling way better. The missed tackles, this is according to PFF. I didn't have time to go back and count them all up from last year and this year, but according to PFF, missed tackles are down nearly 20% as opposed to this time last year. We're tackling better in space. Sometimes football ain't all that complicated. You just got to go out and execute a little bit better. That's what Texas A&M's doing. The second thing, busting coverage. Again, I don't have numbers to point to, but I think every Texas A&M fan listening to this, when you watch this team last year, was like, guys are running scot-free open. Like we're busting one or two coverages a game that are leading to points. That ain't happening this year. And again, I think the storyline is all of these guys were on this defense last year. There's a better sense of communication. There's a better sense of chemistry. There's a better sense of understanding of what our jobs are on defense this year. And you're seeing Texas A&M tackle better. They're not giving up as many free plays and busted coverages. And as a result, this defense is better. We said it back in August. This is a defense that does not lack talent. NFL guys at all three levels. You just got to play better as a unit. We kind of trusted Mike Elko to get it right in year two. Boy, has he. And you can tell Mike Elko's hands on this defense a little bit more prevalent than what it was last year. Getting home. This was another thing we talked about in the eyes. Like one of the bigger question marks we had is, hey, Texas A&M last year had 171 quarterback hurries. They weren't really getting home. It's one thing to be disruptive. It's another thing to go out and actually get that quarterback to the ground and kill off a drive. Texas A&M this year is sacking the quarterback 11% of dropbacks. That is number 2 in the country. And obviously that's thanks to Cassius Howell the most. Everybody's getting involved. Deion Hayes is emerging, which kind of leads us to, hey, there are still steps, man. Like this is the conversation. I apologize, we're 16 minutes in, but this is the conversation that I hope Texas A&M fans stuck around to listen to. We can still get better. And there is still some inconsistencies around this football team. Like what we saw in the second quarter against LSU, where you give up a blocked punt, you bust a snap, you turn the ball over twice. There is still another level of consistency that this team can play with. Then there's some other like personnel storylines. Like, all right, well, what happens if Deion Hayes continues the trend that he's on? And the trend that Deion Hayes is going on after season-ending injury at Colorado is getting better every single time he goes out there. What happens if he emerges as a guy that's one of the better pass rushers in this conference to complement Cassius Howell on the other side? How about DJ Hicks? And David Hicks continues to get better every single time he goes out there too. You are seeing guys emerge, and the more answers we have in the pass rush department that aren't named Cassius Howell, the more difficult this team becomes to block up. Cassius Howell is going to get the superstar treatment because that cat's a superstar. First round NFL draft pick, in my opinion. And I'll say this about Cassius Howell again, once again, off-roading. That energy he's bringing, I think that permeates throughout this Texas A&M defense. That is a alpha dog out there, and I think everybody feeds off his energy. But what I was trying to say is that the more answers we have in the pass rush, because go back to earlier in the year, it felt like it was a little one-dimensional. It's like Cassius Howell is coming up with the sack, or maybe we're not getting after the quarterback like we should. Now, Deion Hayes is emerging. DJ Hicks is emerging. I still think Marco Jones, there's a level that kid can reach as a freshman where he can contribute in some big moments. We're starting to see some more answers emerge. And here's another storyline. We've talked about this a lot too, that wide receiver 3, that third pass catching option, right? At times it felt like it was Casey or Mario or bust, right? Who else can win on the outside? Well, Ashton Bethel-Roman, he's coming on, right? Very clearly coming on. I'll also say this, we talk about, you only have 2 wide receivers that you trust. I think they trust the tight end room a heck of a lot too. And this tight end room blocks their tails off. They also contribute when they need to in the passing game and have come up with some monster plays, whether it's in the red zone against Notre Dame, whether it's moving the chains on third downs. There's still areas where this team can get better, and that's what should excite Texas A&M fans. We saw in that second half against LSU, there is a level Texas A&M can reach that I don't know if many teams can reach and bang with. Now, can we continue to get better in some areas and maintain that level of consistency a little bit more? Eliminate the turnovers, eliminate the penalties, which has been a little bit of a problem. You do that. Yeah, to me, it's becoming a little clear. Like Texas A&M, and I throw in Alabama. Those are the 2 teams that, man, it seems like they're playing on another level. And now the answer is, hey, can we just keep getting better? If they do, this team's going to be really, really hard to beat. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll tell you this, Texas A&M bye week ain't going to stop me from sharing my takes about this football team. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.